And so that's important to note. We should do things that we gain fulfillment from. That is, that is closely tethered to our purpose in life and how we serve and help others and actually leave a footprint when we die.
Welcome back, everybody. We are joined today by Justin Groth, natural bodybuilder, master trainer, mindset coach, and host of Straight from the Chest podcast. Justin, welcome.
Thanks for having me on, Jason.
Thanks. Anthony, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Excited to be here.
Awesome. So, Justin, we'd love to learn a little bit about your background, kind of where you came from and the things that started you on the path to where you are now.
So I'll attenuate the story a little bit here. So I grew up in a really strong nuclear household. Mom, dad, no addictions of any sort, no drug or alcohol addictions or anything, even in my entire lineage. Just everything's pretty copacetic for the most part. Nothing, out of pocket. And then, I get to high school and, like anybody in high school, I think, well, at least for me, I should say, I speak for myself, most of my identity issues happen in high school. And, I think we're really impressionable at the teenage years, and I certainly was. And I ended up just trying my hand at so many different looks and trying to fit in, trying to gain acceptance, etc. Right? And it led me down a path where I started to get really I use the word sucked up, and in layman's terms, it means real skinny, I was at a point where I was clinically anorexic, and it was because I was trying to chase this archetype of body that I thought I wanted, and I have an addictive personality, and I uncovered this throughout this process that I don't likely stop even if I know it's not good for me. And so I just kept dieting. I kept doing lots of cardio, and I didn't know at the time how to diet correctly. I didn't know how to change my body. I just knew, okay, I want to get skinnier, so I'm gonna stop eating and I'm gonna do a lot of running, a lot of skateboarding, a lot of bicycling, whatever, And again, it led me down a destructive path. I was clinically anorexic, and I at that point I was like, you know what? People were starting to say things, my family included, and I told my family, I said, look, I need to get help here. Like, I know I'm not going to reverse this. I need you to get me some help. And so my mother at the time, she sought out her nutritionist for me and her personal trainer. And so I started working out 3 days a week with her personal trainer, which was just basic, like, full body workouts. It was nothing. It was no like bro split, no like, legs, back, chest, arms, nothing like that. It was just an hour workout where we did like legs and shoulders and chest and back. We did everything, and I slowly started to put on muscle because at that point, anything I do, I'm going to respond well to in terms of physical activity, like resistance training. And so I did, and I started to like that. And I started to see that was this is something that I was actually good at doing. I was good at lifting weights. I was good at sticking to a structure. I was good at going to the gym, even when my buddies didn't show up to meet me. And so it just led me down a pathway of building more and more muscle, getting more and more immersed into the whole bodybuilding routine. I met a guy that I knew from high school. He had competed in several competitions at that point, and he told me, he said, Justin, you have some really good genetics. I think you would do really well competing. You should do a show. And so that was the ignition that called me to do that, or that led me down the path of competing. And I was never introduced to steroids, and even if I was, I never would have taken them because it just didn't go along with my moral compass in life. I mean, up until then and still current day, I've never drank, never smoked, never done any extracurricular drugs. I don't know what it's like to be drunk or high or none of that shit. I mean, the only thing that I've ever experienced a high from is caffeine. That's the only thing I can attest to. So that didn't run in tandem with my moral compass. So even if I was introduced to drugs, I wouldn't have taken them because I had said no to all the other extracurricular drugs during high school and college days. So it was no problem for me to refrain. And so I ended up competing as a natural bodybuilder. And the shows, for anybody who was understanding of the I would say the competitive bodybuilding world, if you want to do, at least back in those days when I was competing, for you to do a natural show, it meant you going Midwest, like somewhere in Indiana. And I'm a California kid. I'm not going to go travel for a fucking show that lasts 2 days. Like, I'm not going to do that shit. I'm not on the professional level. I'm not winning money for this shit. So I'm going to stay my ass in local arenas like San Francisco and LA. Well, the only thing that sucked about that was that all the people that, or the committees, the NPC, the federations that held, or the sanctioned events were all untested. So I was going up against untested athletes, and but I wasn't gonna drive Midwest to go, or take a plane, to go travel and do a competition for natural bodybuilder. So that was my only lot, I guess, to go LA, San Francisco. And even if it was just against guys that were on gear, I was going to try my hand at that. And I was blessed to do real well. And I placed real high against guys that were competitively geared up. But I knew that to take to the next level, I'd have to do all the litany of pharmacological substances that all those other guys were doing. And I just wasn't on board with that. So I had a pretty abbreviated career in competitive bodybuilding, but it taught me a lot about myself, man. It taught me a lot about what I'm capable of. It taught me a lot about mindset and what it actually means to have a hardened mindset. And these are the practices that I offer tutelage for in my programs, online and in-person training. It also led to the genesis of a personal training business. People would ask me what I was training, why I was training this way, or some nutrition question. And I realized that when I would pour information into these people, I gained this heightened fulfillment from it. And so I just took that to the ends, and I made a business out of it because of something that I realized I was innately good at. And this is something that came natural to me, on top of the fact that I gained fulfillment from it. And so that's important to note. We should do things that we gain fulfillment from. That is, that is closely tethered to our purpose in life and how we serve and help others and actually leave a footprint when we die.
Yeah, something that you said kind of throughout that story was your discipline and staying the course, even though people around you may not have been, or even when you were at a disadvantage compared to some of these other athletes. Now, I imagine as a coach, like the people who come to see you aren't so disciplined or determined. And like, how do you bridge that gap between the ideal state and people who just like, they want to do good, but they struggle with consistency?
Well, there's many layers to many different people, and everybody's a little bit different in terms of their subjective hangups and their vices and their temptations. So, but one thing's for sure, and there's a common denominator with everybody. Everybody wants a result. Everybody wants a certain outcome, and that's why they essentially come to me. So I have to first unravel all of the hangups and temptations and vices they have that are causing them to go down these destructive paths. And I have to give them tools that help to better that person's, or more harden that person's focus towards where they're going and what outcome they're actually after. And ultimately, to be honest with you, you can't help everybody, and there are people that I can't help. So realizing that I'm not a magician, there's no magical work here. There is work that has to be done, and there's work on that person's end as well. And if they're not willing to put in the work, if they're not willing to put at least 50% of the work in and meet me halfway, I have no room for you. And then you can just suffer and die on your own. In terms of the outcome that you're after, you're not willing to get there. I'm not willing to pour out energy into you, man, because I can see that you're not even serious. So you're actually serious about this thing and you understand it's work, okay, let me guide you. I'll guide you, but you do have to pick your fucking feet up and walk in 1 foot in front of you. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like, these things have to be a cohesive, there has to be some type of a marriage here for it to work. And if it's not, then I call it like it is in the beginning and I say, you're not going to make it. And you're not even going to make it with my help. And if you can't make it with my help, you can't make it, period, because I'm one of the best.
Yeah, that's very true in lots of walks of life. You got to be willing to help yourself, especially if you want to get help from other people. But can you think about a moment or a series of moments before you started the coaching where you sort of started to realize, you know what, I think I actually can and should use my ability to start helping other people, and sort of when that mindset shift happened for you?
Yeah, that was when I was getting ready for one of my first competitions in 2008, and I was starting to develop a physique in my gym, if you like to call it that, and I started wearing more tank tops, more cutoff shirts, and people started to see my physique change in shape, and they would start to come up to me and ask me like, "Hey, man, what are you doing that exercise for? Or can you watch me do this exercise? Or how does my form look here? Or what do you eat? What's your breakfast look like?" Anyways, all these different questions that I had thrown at me when I didn't have prior, and it started to release this type of reward in me when I would pour into these people about this information they're asking me, and I just felt connected to that, and I felt an onus on me to follow that and do something with it, and that's what led to me getting a personal trainer certificate. One of my first credentials was a CPT, and when I got that, I was now what do you call it? I guess justified to help take care of people, and so now I went to the commercial gym there. It was local in my area, and it was actually the gym that I was training in for my own workouts, and I just started training people, and that led to me doing things a little bit more, I guess, for my own. I started my own mobile business, and I went around to people's houses, and I just bought equipment, right? And I went around to people's houses, and I went to parks, and I trained people at parks in their houses, in home privately, and started to develop a little name for myself. And I was able to accrue enough capital to where I was able to put it down on a lease on a new building and get a loan out and buy equipment and, start the business as an actual brick and mortar. But I was very, very tethered to the idea that people are only productive when they're mostly productive when they're in private. When you're training somebody at a commercial gym, that person, no matter what, unless that person just doesn't give a fuck, which most people do, they're going to worry about who's watching them. They're new to fitness. They're overweight, likely. They're out of shape. They don't understand. They're not confident whatsoever. And then here's me training you in a gym full of people that are, for the most part, fairly in shape, or to some degree in shape, or maybe there's a couple of that person that aren't in shape, you know what I mean? Like, but most people are going to be in shape, and so they're going to be very, very self-conscious. And I couldn't, because of that, they were like this balled up, like just in a, I don't know what illustration to use. They were just really balled up, and I couldn't get any performance out of them, which meant a reduced level of productivity, which meant a reduced level of results, which meant a dig on my name, right? Like, not a dig, but I couldn't perform my best work because this person was too worried about what everybody else was thinking. Even though no one cares what you look like in the gym, I mean, I'll never look at anybody and judge them what their body is. I don't care. You're in here bettering yourself. That's fucking what we're all doing, And so I realized that I have to do this thing kind of behind closed doors to get my most productivity or my best productivity out of these people, or to get their best productivity out, right? And so that's what made me so steadfast towards opening a private personal training practice or boutique gym, and one of which I'm still facilitating in today.
Yeah, that had me thinking. I totally agree with you that for somebody who is unfamiliar with fitness, the environment that they like the most accessible environments, like the $10 a month gyms or things like that, you're not, the environment's not good for them, right? Like for all the reasons you said, right? They're going to be people watching and then assuming that all eyes are on them, when in fact everybody assumes all their eyes are on them and nobody's paying any mind to anybody in the first place. But as somebody who's done like group classes, one of the things that I've noticed is so for example, Jason and I would do a workout together. If we were paired up, right, like I would actually push harder because I didn't want to be the one who's slowing the team down. So there's got to be some balance between like being solo and then also being in a group setting where you're just dumped into hundreds of people. And so like, have you played around with like that ideal formula?
Absolutely. So for that reason, we do have semi-group or semi-private classes, which are group classes, small group, 2, 3, 4, or 5 people. Because you're right in that sense that people do push themselves to get to a competitive level with the person who they're with in that group, and they will push harder. That also works. And you're also talking about people that know each other, have an intimate connection already before they come into to train together, and so that makes a very good cohesive bond between the people and me and getting results, right? But that often doesn't happen that way when you go to a commercial gym. It's not that way. Everybody's spending for themselves. Everybody's unless you got a buddy that you're working out with and that sort of thing. But it's the group training absolutely works. But the independent, which is what most people do, doesn't work. And the reason, to kind of touch on what you said that most people get into this $10 a month membership and they think that it's going to be the solver of all their problems, and they just fall in love with the romantic idea of it at that point. That's all they're really drawing into, is the romantic idea that I'm going to get in shape, and only for $10 a month. And they don't understand all of the layers that exists that the person that's selling them the membership is not telling them, but the alternative to that is personal training, being led, being guided by somebody who's a professional that understands how to train you and guide you correctly and really towards the goals that they're after. And most people's goals are predominantly, the same for the most part. They want to lose weight, they want to build muscle, they want to transform their body to some degree,
Yeah, absolutely. As you've been embarking on this journey and, becoming all these coaching opportunities, have there been challenges along the way that have made you second guess yourself? And how did you overcome those challenges, if so?
So that's the thing about me. I've never second guessed myself, even though I have the devil in my ear at times saying, hey, this, that, and the third. And I understand that they're thoughts and they're just implanted there to derail me. But I know what I'm competent in. And I've shown that time and time again with myself, with multiple things that I've done in my life. So I know that there's an undeniable stack of proof right beside me saying, you are this guy. You are this man that you created. And it's your duty to give that man to the world and give the talents that God infused you with to the world. And so that's what I plan to do. And that, when I say that to myself, that just shuts out the enemy's voice entirely. I mean, I could turn this camera over about 50 degrees to the right here, and I could show you my trophy stack. That right there is an undeniable stack of proof that I am what I am, and I can do what I can do for not only for me, but for other people. So there's no questions within me. I get what everybody gets, and that is the enemy trying to derail you in your thoughts. But you have to understand that those are just thoughts. They're very futile and they're fleeting.
I love that. Yeah, you are not your thoughts.
Yeah.
Right. That's awesome. So I'm wondering, not everybody's going to do the personal training route. Like I'm thinking of the listener, and I'm thinking of like, what would you say to somebody who says like they have a why, their why, and maybe it's vain or maybe it's not, like I want to look better. Or in my case, when I have these conversations with people, I say there's a big difference between saying I want to look better in the mirror and I want to make sure I can keep up with my kids who are running circles around me and I can't get on the floor with them, right? Like, and different people will have different whys. So how do you get people, like, I don't know how to get people started, you know, like what's the thing that helps motivate, like, and I'm most specifically wondering, you must have seen like a lot, you've tried a bunch of different things, like what works to help get people started, and then I guess more than that, finish. And you're never finished, right? But
Yeah.
consistency, I guess, you know.
What helps people get started is consequence. Knowing that there's a consequence to their lack of action is the thing that gets people going. Knowing that if they don't do something about themselves right now in the position that they're in, that they're going to reap the consequences of them being lazy, of them being undisciplined, of them being not having self-restraint with certain foods, with their and honestly, it's a lack of respect on themselves if they don't start to do something that builds up their body, builds up their prowess, builds up their confidence, their competency, etc. It's a lack of self-respect on that individual. You can't tell me you love yourself when you're eating like shit, you don't work out, you sleep poorly, you stress out about everything, you're depressed. Likely the reason why you're depressed and you're anxious about everything that you shouldn't be is because you're not treating your body with respect. You're not eating the right foods. You're not sleeping properly. You're not structuring your life in a sound fashion. And that's the reason why you're a piece of shit right now. So if you don't want to be a piece of shit for the rest of your life, then you have to understand that you have to do something about it. And a lot of times that's just enough for people to make the shift and change. But if they don't want to do that, if they don't change based on that remark, I mean, well then fuck it. Suffer and die. Like I don't have any time for people that don't want to better themselves. If you want to stay a piece of shit and try to get everything out of me to absolve you from this better trajectory that you could be in life, and everybody would benefit around you as a byproduct, including you, well then fuck it. You're impenetrable. And if you're impenetrable, man, then I mean, not even you can save you. I mean, no one can save you at this point. You have to realize that there are consequences to your lack of actions, not just actions. And the lack of action is putting you in this position. And at this point, dude, your why should be, oh, I just want to be better for fucking me. That's it. I just want to be better for me. And if you don't want to be better for you, well then, why are we even having this conversation? Your why, the one why that you should levy this whole thing on is you wanting to be better. And if that's vanity, that's vanity. That's what got me into this shit. Vanity got me here. And I have vanity to thank for it. For me being a better man, I have vanity to fucking thank for it. And I'll never not concede to that. But vanity led me to this position where now I'm this kind of fucking man where I can lead other men. So now it's transmuted into something completely different.
Your passion is very clear. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's admirable. I mean, you, like you say, people got to want to help themselves. And that's, yeah.
Well, I mean, it's important to me, man. It's just important to me. And so that's what it comes out as. I talk sometimes with ferocity because it's important to me that people understand these notions. And they're even far more than notions, man. They're just, these are priorities that we need to keep sacred to us as men, as human beings.
As you look into the future for yourself, you know, what are your goals? What do you hope to accomplish for the rest of your time? And, you know, how can we and our listeners help you get to where you're trying to go?
Dude, I just want to chip away at one person at a time. And that's all I can expect to do in my life. Change one person at a time. You know, that's the thing that I focus on when I wake up in the morning. That's the thing that I focus on in my life with me, is the person, one person at a time, and changing somebody based on what they need, not what the masses necessarily need. I want to change a person at a time. If I can do that, then I can have a profound effect. So it's just all about the person's at the subjective level.
Got it. Yep. And is there anything you want to specifically ask to us, to our listeners at all, or just say words of wisdom? Anything you.
Well, I think what you guys are doing here is great. I think that your entire platform is one of improvement and personal development, and that is something that more and more people need to latch onto, and more people need to understand the essential nature of it. And I know it goes kind of by the wayside because people just get enthralled in just their everyday work and their 9 to 5s and then their kids, and then they leave themselves on the table, and as a result they put themselves in the back burner. They don't put themselves as a priority, and they may think that that's the selfless way to live, but that's probably the most haphazard way to live, and ultimately you're going to end up reaping the negative ramifications from that, and it's going to come by way of you being just slowly diluted to the point where you're so deficient that you can't help anybody. And then at that point, what kind of a person are you? What kind of a service can you provide to anybody? What kind of a benefit are you to anybody? Not only people around you, but your family. So I always advocate for personal development and self-improvement. And that's exactly what you two gentlemen are doing here. So I applaud that.
Well, thank you. That's certainly our goal. Anthony, any parting questions, words?
No, I get what you're saying, and I agree that you can't do it for somebody, right? They gotta take the leap, and then they gotta stick with it. The one thing that you said that I got thinking about a little bit more is the consequences that you had mentioned. Like if they don't do these actions, like the consequences are usually deferred for a long time, and they're insidious, right? And then eventually you got to pay the price, but it's at an inopportune time, and it's not when you plan. So like for me, I found my why. I know exactly why I go show up and do the work. I know exactly why I'm doing this podcast. And yeah, I hear what you're saying. So thanks for sharing your message.
Thank you, bro. Those were good words too on your end.
Right. Well, we want to thank you so much for taking the time with us today, Justin. It's been a wonderful conversation, and we wish you all the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate your time, man.
All right, everybody. Be well, and we'll catch you next time.